Come on, get on with it, will you? Do you know, I said don't hack at it, but I reckon the rate you're cutting it is growing faster than you're cutting it. It's all your fault. If we weren't trollops in all over the world, I could be at home and Ozzy could do something with it. But as it is, I'm with you, having a bad hair day. You've finished. Good. Right, okay then. What do you mean, do I want something for the weekend? Hey? Yeah, I do. I want Amsterdam, actually. Yeah. Click your finger. We're already in Amsterdam. That's what the plane, the boat journey, the train, the taxi was all about. We're here. Roll the titles, you pathetic lump. Travel. That's the theme of this programme. You see, they've got these canals all over the city. There used to be open sewers used for industry. Now they're used for pleasure. Look at this map. All the blue bits are canals all over this city. There's loads of them, I know, and we're not going on any of them. No. They've got trams as well, on tracks, crisscrossing all over the... Yeah, that's right, they go over there. All over the city. There's one. They're fantastic as well. But we're not going on them. No, no, no. Shanksy's pony, mate. We're walking. Best foot forward and all that. Come on. No trams, no water, foot. That is what we'll use, and that is how we'll get around this fair city. Over there, water, lots of it. And if that's your port and you've got water that way, then you've got to have safety that way. So you've got to build yourself a great big wall to encircle the city so that you can get out the way, so that you can protect yourself. And this is all that's left of the original wall. 1488. It's called Wacht. Well, I'm told that's how you pronounce it. W-A-A-G. Wacht. Anyway, this is it. The old city walls. Actually, this was the gatehouse, and it's the only bit that's remaining. The trouble is that the city grew at an incredible pace, so no sooner had you built a wall like that, and the city had grown beyond it. So it became a bit redundant. And after that, it turned into a place for public executions. Can you imagine? You're up there in the little gallows room, waiting for the moment when the rope is placed around your neck. Yeah, and after that, it was used for all sorts of different things. It was a furniture store. It was a fencing centre. It was a fire station. And it was a theatre of anatomy. Surgeons came here and carried out operations, cutting people up. So a fascinating history and an equally interesting building. Wacht. Because land was at a premium in Amsterdam, people were taxed for the size of their buildings. Now, the merchants obviously wanted to build their buildings right next to the canals where they did the business. But if you had a big wide house, you paid a lot of tax. And if you had a tiny, tiny little house, you only paid a little bit of tax. Which is why there are some houses like that. One of them is only 1 metre wide. A house. The largest house in the whole of Amsterdam is 22 metres wide. I mean, what a strange life that must be, living in a house. You'd be banging Kitty from side to side, wouldn't you? I was only joking. A little further down, another lovely old tower. This time from the early 1400s. They've added a bit on the top and they've put a bit on the side, but don't do that. You're bugging me. Sheerstoren is its name. Do you know, I could talk absolute rubbish and you wouldn't have the foggiest idea, would you? It's a bit like Call My Bluff. See if you can go for this then. A man set sail from here in 1609. His name was Henry Hudson. He was an Englishman. And from here he went off on a boat called the Half Moon and set sail on a voyage of discovery. And he sailed up a river on a distant land, which he named after himself. Hudson. What does it mean? Come on, memory, history. Upstairs, downstairs. What? Hudson? The Hudson River. New York. That's what he... Upstairs, downstairs. That's what he discovered from here. It's called Sheerstoren, which means the Weeping Tower. Because from here, women would wave off their loved ones. And maybe never see them again. Well, it was water then. They just built the road since. Use your imagination. Anyway, come on. Now, was it true or was it false? You're thinking about it. False. No, you're wrong. All true. One thing that old Amsterdammers and new Amsterdammers have in common is the age-old problem of how do you keep your buildings up? You'll see all the buildings have got braces in them. That's because they're all falling over. They were built on pillars of wood which were hammered into the ground about 11 meters down. And nowadays, 22 meters of concrete driven into the ground. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, look at those buildings. Can you imagine waking up in the morning? You'd be sort of going like that. Hello dear, nice to see you. What you doing? Counting bikes. What for? There are a lot, right? Can you imagine if you parked your bike and you come back and you say, now, I think, no, maybe I parked, or could it have been, there's thousands of bikes in Amsterdam, and there's one or two trams, and you're counting them now. Trams are you, they're not me. We're not going on one, forget it. Central Station behind me. When it was built, people didn't like it because it obscured the view of the harbour, but then most of the ships went. And now people like it. I know it's got funny things on the top that do that. I think the wind indicators, but I'm not sure. I'll find out. Leave it alone. It's not yours. Hey, this area is called Rembrandt's Corner. Do you know why? Because it used to be a racetrack. No. Because Rembrandt lived here. This is his house just down here. They've turned it into a museum now. 1639 he came to live here, and he spent fortunes on the house. In fact, he spent so much on the house with lavish lifestyle and building that he almost went bankrupt and he had to sell it and get out. But that's where he taught people to paint and did his painting on the ground floor. Yeah, I know there's a crane there. It wasn't there when he was there. Did he paint windmills? Well, he probably did, yeah. No, I don't mean he painted windmill. I mean, he would have painted a windmill. Forget it. Anyway, why? You want to see one. Okay. Don't do that. It's embarrassing. You wanted a windmill? There's a windmill, an enormous one. One of only 6 left in the city. That one was built in 1725. They had to move it to here because they put a factory next to it and it took away its wind. Do you know they started in England and France in the 12th century and then spread all over Europe? And it is a mill used for milling grain, not for pumping, which a lot of wind pumps were used for. There you go. Now it's a brewery. No. Next. It's not a tram, it's a metro, it's underground, and above it is the city. And this clever little device shows you the different water levels within the city and how they put the buildings together. You can see the piles that are drilled down 20 meters through the peat, through the sand, through the peat, through the sand and down. Now the reason they put this up is because water is vital to this city. It even takes its name from the control of water, Amsterdam. A dam on the river Amstel. That's where the name comes from. That shows you the level of water outside of the city, i.e. the sea. And then round here, you get the water level within the city, and a datum, which is 0 level. Every building within Amsterdam and the Netherlands is built using that 0 point, because if you get it wrong, you've got a mushy and waterlogged garden. You want to go on the water. You see, I thought I could come to a city and not have to bother with boats. Happy now, are you? It's a boat for you. 90 islands make up Amsterdam, 400 bridges over from one to the other. And the canals were built in the 17th century. The merchants put them there, moved the stuff around, the most important trading centre in the whole of Europe. We're trying to find some history on it. I'll get some in a bit. You see, the first settlers in the 13th century, they chose the River Amstel because it was rich in fish and because it was a safe place for boats. And, you know, these canals, a lot of them carry the names of the industries that surround them, like there's the Brewers Canal and like there's the Cat Food Canal. I'm joking. But it is interesting.
End of the tour. Finish. Finito. Kaput.
I think you can manage just a bit more history. I want you to think about Amsterdam, this seafaring port. Men going out on the ships, lost at sea forevermore. Children left back in Amsterdam, orphaned. And Haja Klaas, a woman who in 1520 turned this building into an orphanage to look after those poor souls. Now you see, if you hadn't got bored, you'd have found out why we're really here. It's a restaurant now, and they specialise in Dutch food, and boy, do they specialise. Everything from canapés to caviar is the saying, but we're going to go Dutch. Only we're not, because you're paying for all of it. I'm not paying for half of it. Look, this is traditionally Dutch. Pea soup with sausage and bacon. Lovely, warming you up in the winter, a bit of rye bread to have with it. A fish plate. All sorts of smoked fish there, trout, salmon, shrimps, everything. You'd love that. And a salted herring, you could have some of that, raw. Or stampots, which are here. Different kinds. It's potato mixed with vegetables, served with all different kinds of meats and pickles. We are going to go for the one which is curly kale, which is, I didn't even know there were different kinds of kale, but this is curly kale. And then there's beef with it, and there's some bacon here which has been chopped, or ham, and the pickles and the sausage. And to finish, some semolina, which is with a raspberry, almost like raspberry jam sauce served around it, with some bread. So, which one are you going to choose then? You're thinking about it, it's going to be that one. Okay, fine, no problem. Oh, and the bread, yeah, okay. And the stampot, and the fish, and the other and that one, and... Listen, the break isn't actually that long, so if you're going to have all of that, you better get stuck in. So, let me get this straight. After you had your multi-course dinner and your corn wine, you transformed the whole of Amsterdam back to the 17th century. Yeah, don't keep doing that, because we know it doesn't work. So here we are, Amsterdam, 17th century. Look, you've even arranged for your mother to come with you. Astonishing. Right, well, let's have a look round. And this is where the poor people of the period lived. And then through into the rich sector. Painters working away. In fact, you know, most of these rooms are reminiscent of famous Dutch painters. Spooky, that. More of them thinking and working away. And a whole street. That boat's moving. And that's Rembrandt. Yeah, working away. You even managed to recreate him as well. Amazing. Then through here, a battle scene. Royalty. An enormous giant falling from the heavens. So, can we just get this absolutely dead straight? You haven't transformed Amsterdam at all. This is what we're in. So, I catch you having a browse, hey? Ironically, you've gone for the same sort of period because Amsterdam's been famous for diamonds for about 400 years. Costas have been going since 1840, and you know that the royal crown was polished by them. That's one that has just been cut, right? That's the shape that you would cut, you knew that. And then you put the different faces on it, and you're right. That's one with the 58 faces on, once it's been finished. It's one you did earlier. Well, it may be simple to do on that size, but it's very, very difficult to do a small one. So you already knew about all that. Well, there are some small diamonds and some little larger ones, all of them with the faces on them. 58 faces on tiny little diamonds like that. And then there's an oval-shaped one, and then there's a brilliant diamond, like that one. You know, in your infinite wisdom, would you say that that was a nice diamond? Good, good, good. And would you like to take it home, perhaps? You're not sure. Do you think that might be because it's worth £50,000? Ah. The expert suddenly wants to go home, does he? Listen, we've done your bits. Now it's time for you to humour me. A little building behind me, a very famous house in Amsterdam. Inside it, a very big story from a very little girl. Because this is the house of Anne Frank, authoress of the famous diary. The Franks came to Amsterdam in 1933 because the Netherlands have always had an attitude of live and let live. So they came here. They were Jews and they were frightened of the Germans. Unfortunately, the Germans occupied Amsterdam, and in 1942 the Franks decided they should hide. And behind this bookcase is where they hid. We can now go inside. You have to remember that this family and other families hid in here for 25 months without making a noise, without anyone knowing they were here. There were businesses going on underneath who didn't know. This was Mr. and Mrs. Frank's bedroom. It's exactly as it was. And then through here is Anne's bedroom. Everything as it was. She had pictures of American superstars, film stars on the wall. And she wrote at her desk there. That's where she did her diary, which has sold 25 million copies around the world. in 55 languages. She was just 15 years old when somebody betrayed the Franks and the Germans came and took her away. And she died in a concentration camp just 2 weeks before everyone else was liberated. Her father was the only member of the family to survive. And he said, "Leave the house exactly as it was." And that's another thing, to have stayed exactly as it was. The oldest house in Amsterdam. I know, isn't it ironic that that, which is a 15th century house, is made out of wood and it withstood the test of time, unlike any stone building? Right, around it, the Heinhof, which is a special area which was set up about 100 years before that house was built, in the early 1300s. And it was for pious women, but women who didn't want to join the church but did want to have a religious life. And it had some strange rules. Like, for example, a woman couldn't have a female friend staying overnight without written permission. No men were allowed in this area. Only boys under 3. It doesn't actually say men aren't allowed. It says don't walk on the grass. And another interesting twist, don't do that. You're bugging me. They didn't allow chickens or dogs because they were too noisy. And it's worked, because I haven't seen a chicken anywhere, have you? It's a pigeon. They're nice in pies, and that's about it. We've come to see that place, the Royal Palace. Actually, it's not the Royal Palace. It was a town hall. That's what it was built as when this place was stinking rich, and the people who ran it wanted everyone else in the world to know. So they built that. Louis, Napoleon's brother, came along beginning of the 19th century and said, that place is fit for a king, so I'll have it. And then his brother said, I'm the ruler, not you. Give it back to the people. Yes, you can go back to your pigeons now. So, there you go. Amsterdam. Done. Dusted. The full Monty. Yeah, I know, there's a bit more, isn't there, really? You see, most people, when they come to Amsterdam, they do that. At least most men do. No. But this is for red-blooded men, not wimps like you. Well, you know, it's something you've got to do, and, you know, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. So I'm going with Daisy for a ride. And here she is. This is Daisy. You can go on your lovely trams. Have you got your stripping carton? Jolly good. Get that stamped, and I bet I see more of Amsterdam than you do. Does this track go to the airport? Oh, you took the number 2 route. Yeah, I know you did. Yeah. And you went past the palace and all the museums, and you went over 23 bridges, and you went down some single track. I know, because I was behind you. I got my front wheel stuck in the tram track. I couldn't go anywhere, and I had a number 7 behind me, and he was pushing me hard, he was. I tell you, there weren't red lights, there were a pink blur, whoosh, straight past like that. No, you've got a memory like a rhinoceros, you. An elephant, whatever. Anyway, yes, it was to do with wind. Remember that thing that was doing all that? Yeah, it's because Amsterdam is so reliant upon wind, or it was with the days of sailing ships. Fires. that was it. Now, another form of transport. This time, it's the airport. Nothing to do with wind. Although they do have wind socks, don't they? Well, what do you do? You've brought your own. Ugh.